Welcome to the programme. We start in Geneva, where the United Nations Secretary-General has called for massive investments to help Pakistan recover from last year's devastating floods. Addressing the fundraising conference for Pakistan, Antonio Guterres said the country was doubly victimised by climate change and a morally bankrupt global financial system. 2 million homes were destroyed in last year's floods. Well, I'm joined now by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, Pakistan's foreign minister, who's in Geneva for that meeting. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. There are reports on Reuters that you have indeed perhaps already been pledged the $8 billion or so that you were hoping to get. Is that correct?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. So far, our conference for a resilient Pakistan has got off to a good start. We've gone through about a third of our speakers at the conference, and so far we've reached, I think it's a little bit above $6 billion, but we've got the rest of the day to look forward to as well. Obviously, the total figure that we're looking for in the longer term is $16 billion, but even getting half that at what we see as the start of this. We're sort of launching this initiative here, but we'll be taking our initiative, our programs across to various different countries, engage with the governments and the private sectors to continue to build upon the momentum that we managed to achieve here today.
Obviously, a lot of innocent, vulnerable people have been very badly affected in those floods, as we've all been covering. But you know, people might ask, is Pakistan a reliable country that taxpayers in the West should actually give their money to? I mean, Imran Khan, the former Prime Minister, has said there's been a dangerous rise in militancy. There have long been allegations of widespread corruption in Pakistan. How can anyone know that the money that is pledged for flood relief is going to where it should be going?
Well, we're very grateful for the support that we've received up until this point. And we, on our own, have actually requested the UNDP and the United Nations to help us build the mechanism so we can have a program to follow the money and have that confidence within the international community. Obviously, the people of Pakistan experiencing this devastation, 30 million people affected by these floods, through really no fault of their own. They're paying in their lives for the industrialization of rich countries. We've contributed 0.8% as far as the global carbon footprint is concerned. But we're the 8th most devastated from climate change and climate-related catastrophes.
Is that partly the fault is that partly, sorry to interrupt, partly the fault of successive Pakistani regimes, of which your family, of course, has been very much part of, in not, for example, building enough dams?
No, I think that the scientific explanation for what has happened has, by and large part, as we've heard the UN Secretary General and others at COP and other international institutions have explained, that the climate change has acted as a sort of a steroids for our monsoons. There is no dam that can be built that is large enough to cover a third of the landmass of my country. Obviously, that's larger than the landmass of the United Kingdom. Everyone has their part to play as far as climate is concerned and climate change is concerned. But as I mentioned, 0.8% of the carbon footprint is from Pakistan. We've contributed that much to this climate catastrophe that now we're experiencing as a frontline state, really, whereas the industrialization of your country and other Western countries have contributed to this far, far much more than the poor people of Pakistan who are facing the brunt of it. So we're very grateful to the support we've been receiving, and we look forward to working with our international partners to overcome this challenge, but ensure that we build a resilient Pakistan, resilient to climate shocks, resilient to economic shocks, and really build back better out of this catastrophe that is not of our making.
And just on the theme of whether Pakistan is a trusted country where, for example, the US and the EU, which have pledged money, I think, today in significant amounts, really should be investing in your country when, for example, there have been historic links between the Pakistani authorities and the Taliban. You know, how much really should the international community be called to engage with Pakistan when there are very big questions over your internal and foreign policy?
I mean, I think that's really completely irrelevant. whatever the Taliban is doing and what the people are suffering as a result of climate change had nothing to do with each other. I would like to remind the world that it was not us that signed the Doha deal with the Afghan Taliban. That was yours and other countries that went about that process. And we are now dealing with the aftermath. My mother, Shahid Mohtamma Benazir Bhutto, were assassinated by terrorists in 2007. Many people in Pakistan have suffered at the hands of extremism. Frankly, I find it offensive that one would claim, because of our complicated history to do with terrorism, we deserve to die as a result of climate catastrophes that we had no part in making. So no, I reject the premise of your question.
Certainly nobody
I got that impression from your question, so I'm glad that it's clarified.
No, well, of course, nobody is suggesting that. But of course, there are ongoing questions about whether any money pledged from international donors is going to the right place, to the right people, to a government and an authority that can be trusted. And that's the heart of this, isn't it?
No, again, that there hasn't been an issue that I've been facing in the conduct of our work. As you noted, we've already managed to achieve the benchmark of $6 billion. Of course, a lot of that is not as part of sort of humanitarian handouts. They're loans that the Pakistani state is taking from the Islamic Development Bank, from the World Bank, and other international financial institutions. But we're incredibly grateful to our partners and friends who are also contributing in that process. As far as how trusted or not trusted we are, I really don't believe that any perceptions of how trusted or untrusted the Pakistani state, the Pakistani government are, should result in the punishment of the people who absolutely, have no contribution as far as our foreign policy is concerned, as far as our counterterrorism policy is concerned, and as far as climate change is concerned. We can all criticize the approach of the West in Iraq, in Afghanistan, or in the past, but as far as I'm concerned, the urgency of now, having experienced a third of my population, a third of my country's landmass underwater, 1 in 7 of my country's people affected by climate change, that frankly, these other topics are irrelevant. It is a climate catastrophe that is the biggest challenge of our time, and I hope that a new generation lives up to this challenge and that we can work together to confront it.
Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, many thanks indeed for joining us.